bosses. Happy Tuesday. I think this is live. It says it's video starting. Let's see. I think it is in the process of going live. I believe we are live now. Happy Tuesday, besties and bosses. How's everyone doing? How was your weekend? How is the start to December going for you? I am going to pull this up and I'm doing this a little bit differently. I think we finally got all the text, so I need to just scroll this down so I can see if you have your comments. But let me know if you're live, if you're on the replay. A couple announcements before we dive into our conversation today. We're going to talk about selling in December, how to book and bring in leads this week. Yes, even though it is December and people think that business is dead. A couple things I always want to dive into or remind you, we do a giveaway every live stream. So today's giveaway, all you have to do is comment. I thought my cat was behind me. Comment, leave some comment below, an emoji, praise hands, a heart, a comment itself, and you'll be entered to win. We are giving away one copy of my 6-week sales course, Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout. It walks you through the mindset and strategy and action of the art and strategy of selling without the ick. It is an excellent course. We are actually going to raise the price of that very soon. We've had it super low price at $99. It's worth $2,000 or $3,000 easily. I've had people go through that course and get themselves booked out just from the course alone. We're jumping it up to $197 just because I want to encourage people to actually take the course and use the material. And I know sometimes we need a little skin in the game for that. But leave a comment below. You'll get entered to win. We're giving away one copy of that today. And then other announcement, so that I don't forget, I'll try to remember at the end of the live stream, and sometimes I'm not the best at that because I get so into our conversation. We have a workshop this month. Usually I do a free masterclass, or I have for the past year or so. We are doing a private workshop this month. It is something that will not be in the Facebook group. It's very low cost, but it is something that has a small fee attached to it because I want to be able to workshop the material with you. We're going to dive into sales without the sleaze, where I'm going to walk you through my proven 6 and 7 figure sales call framework. I do not believe in sales scripts. I do not think sales scripts are the way to booking out your business, making 6, 7 figures. And after having been in business for 6.5 years, I run a booked out multi-6-figure business. We have made $1 million from sales, one-on-one sales calls in the last 4 years, $700K in the last 2 years from one-on-one and those sales calls alone. I have found there is a strategy to sales conversations and to sales. And so while we don't want to script and we don't want to be up in our head and feeling like we're memorizing things, there's absolutely a strategy to leading really transparent, powerful sales conversations that facilitate trust and safety and empowering the person in front of you to make those decisions to buy. So that's what we're going to walk through. It's only $39 if you sign up. It is on the 15th. It'll be private, so you'll be able to ask questions. Depending on how many people are live, we might even workshop a little bit in terms of you might get to role play a little bit some of those parts we're talking about in the sales conversation. I'll drop a link below, but the link is kimmarketsinger.com/ let me actually pull this up to make sure I say this correctly, kimmarketsinger.com / sell - without - the sleaze. I will drop this right now and then put a description afterwards. Can I leave a comment on I think I can. Oh, this is so exciting. I feel so like technologically savvy. So I'm just gonna pull up the group for that. So that's all you need to do to get yourself booked up in for that. We will be raising the price for the replay on, I believe, the 24th to $49. It'll still be really inexpensive, but if you want to get in at that price and have that private attention and focus from me, we will have that in the workshop. It's kind of the best way to get that support without being in one of my one-on-one containers. So I would love to have you join me for that, and I would love to build that in with you with that. Don't mind me as I'm distracted here. I'm just trying to make sure I'm getting like weird messages from our technology here, just making sure we're actually live in the group still. This is so weird. Y'all, I am like so fascinated sometimes by technology. All right, it's telling me that I'm live. I just don't actually see us live in here. All right, well, hopefully we're actually live in the group. I'm going to run with the fact that we are and that this is playing for y'all, but we'll see when I finish this if this didn't actually record, but it's showing that we're live. Just getting a funny thing. If you're able to catch this and see this, drop me an emoji. Now we're on the replay. But let's dive into today's conversation. So what I wanted to talk about with you and what we're going to dive into is really 3 ways to bring in potential clients this week and anytime in December. So listen to the podcast this week, we talked about this a little bit more on the podcast as well, but just to normalize it and call it for what it is. I think December is such a fascinating month where in many ways it's a month like any other month, but because it's December, because it's the end of the year, and because it's the holidays, our brains, I think, just get a little wackadoo. And I find this month out of any other time of the year, maybe January a little bit, I find spins my clients out and has people just full of so many stories. And I think there is some science to this. I mean, there's actually, if you've ever read When by Daniel H. Pink, he talks a lot about the timing of different things and optimal timing for performance and results. So I think there are some legitimate things that come up for us around timing. So I don't want to minimize any of that. And I think obviously most people are using this time of the year to reflect on the past year and to look to the year forward, and also thinking about maybe taking some time off and slowing down. And so I think all of that can contribute to this month feeling very different. And what I want to normalize is all of that can be true. And obviously, if you want to take time off or take the whole month off, and all of that is beautiful, like have at it. And business still gets to continue to run as normally as you want it to in the month of December. People still buy in the month of December. I would say particularly for those of you who are selling in the business space, selling to business owners or business to business owners, in some ways sales can increase in December because so many people are wanting to maximize their tax benefits, get those benefits. And at the end of the year, I think a lot of people are reflecting on the past year and sort of looking at, okay, so this is what this year was. What are my opportunities to have next year be a year where I grow or where we scale? What are those opportunities for us? And I think that has a lot of people looking at their investments, whether that's support or team or programs or software for the following year. So in many ways, I think this can be a year where, or a month where sales increase. But if we have a story that no one buys in December, or business is basically over on December 5th or 6th, right? It makes it very challenging to do so because we show up based on our stories, right? And then we're going to then see the evidence in our business as self-fulfilling prophecy, as opposed to really deciding it gets to be however you want, but you absolutely can sell in December. And just while we're chatting, just checking again to see if I can see if we're live. It's so weird. This is so weird, y'all. Okay. Laura says she can see me, and Steph says she can see me. So, y'all, I swear Facebook and I live like just have this like really funny relationship. Okay, thank you for verifying. I'm going live through the Facebook app itself, and I don't know why. It doesn't even matter. I'm live. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter that I can tell that I'm live. You can see me. Since you can see me, y'all can let me know as well. And I'm curious if this comes up for anyone else in December, and just how everyone's feeling about December as a month. And what I would say before we get into our conversation more about bringing in leads this week, any week of the year. This is really not just December relevant, but we happen to be in December. What I would say for everyone here, and if you want to listen to the podcast, we dive into a question to really support you for setting up your long-term success. I always talk about with my clients now and clients later, success now and success later. So the podcast episode this week, we had a question and really a conversation around, yes, December, bringing in leads and success now, but really how do you set yourself up for that long-term success in business? And what I would say, one of those things, and a little bit of what we're talking about on the podcast, is really allowing yourself to be intentional and remembering that this month isn't any different, but what you decide and set yourself up for intentionally this month is also going to affect your results in January and February and in March. I think so often, that doesn't mean you can't take time off. That doesn't mean if you take time off, that's going to mean you don't get results in January or February. But I think so often we, in business, especially in our online space, can have such a myopic view where we're just looking at one day at a time or 1 month at a time. We're like in this funky thing in our online space where we just look at like 1 month sales, and I get it. I mean, I talk about that as well because that's what people want to hear, but that has us be causes us then to look at things like, oh my gosh, it's the month of December, what does that mean? And it causes us to have a very short-term look at our business. And so I'd invite everyone here to play with what if business is about more than 1 month and taking more of that long-term view, but also being really intentional with how you want the month of December to be. And if you want the month of December to be a month where you continue to bring in clients, to bring in revenue, to bring in sales, to decide that absolutely gets to be true for you. And that will lead us into our conversation about how to do that. because Shari says, "Hi Kim, got you in my background today, confirming I can hear you live." Hi Noshaba, nice to see you. Heart. Oh, thank you all for thank you for, because it shows me that no one is here. Like no one is here live, and it also, when I pull up my Facebook group, it doesn't show the live as even being present on my end. Like it's like it doesn't exist. So I really appreciate you all, and I'm glad I get to hang with you in the background, Shari. Nice to see all of the friend faces. Shari says, "I personally don't have stories about December or end of year. If anything, it feels a little fun, like a little fun sprint because of my nonprofit background. EOY was the most active financial season." I love that you have that evidence as well. I think that's so fun to have the evidence, and to see the two thoughts that come up for me there is how it is fun because you've decided it's fun and you're treating it like a fun sprint. And I think that's just a great reminder for everyone. I know this sounds like such basic stuff, y'all, but I think we sometimes forget we get to decide what each month, what each season is going to be. And generally speaking, the way we approach it and the way we want to feel is the way then we're going to show up and what we get to create for ourselves. So I love that evidence from you, Shari. I think it's also just really nice for people to see outside of our online space how December sincerely can be the most profitable financial month for many, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit business. I think if we look at so many brick and mortar or traditional businesses, and when I say traditional, I just mean more of the outside of the online space, think of how many people are buying gifts in December, or restaurants, how much they fill up for parties and end of year holiday things. So I think it's just helpful for us all to remember it can be either way you want. You get to choose the story that's true for you, and you also get to look at the data from your business. I do have clients where their business, in air quotes, is a little slower this month for various reasons because of seasonality. But I think the big win there is then not creating a story and not making your business success or your business worth or your safety around money in your business being so viewed into one month, because I think that's when we all get ourselves into trouble. I'm going to take myself on a tangent. We are going to talk about bringing in leads. Shari says, sorry, fundraising. End of year fundraising jargon. LOL. I appreciate that. That's also live stream brain, where sometimes when you read comments, you just read literally what's in front of you, because EOY end of year actually makes complete sense when you see that. So I think that's more my brain. Steph says, totally agree that you get to choose. My first 20K month was in December. I love that evidence. Yes, keep the evidence coming. I think I have many clients where December is their biggest month of the year. So I think for everyone, this is not pressure that now this needs to be the biggest month of the year. This is the one other thing I'll touch on before we talk about leads, because I think this is the other place people get themselves so in hot water. We talked about this in the podcast this week a little bit, where if this is a month where you want to take half the month off or the whole month off, or check out completely or not sell completely, or this is because of the seasonality in your business for whatever reason, a time when people aren't buying or shopping as much, whatever the thing is there, and you're intentionally deciding that this is going to be a slower month for you because you want to go and travel, I think the win here then is to intentionally decide that, and intentionally decide what that means for you in terms of how you want to show up in business and how you want to feel, and not to box yourself into a corner where you're saying, I want to take the month of December off, or I want this to be a really chill month, and then also putting the pressure on you where you're hearing us here talk about, well, there's people saying that December was their biggest month and that's when they had their 20K month. So I both want this to be my most peaceful, slow, going on vacation month, and I expect this to be the biggest month of the year because that's what is true for someone in someone else's business. And just to see how that's what boxes us as business owners into a corner, and there's just room for both to be true, but this is where you get to be the CEO of your business and be the captain of your own ship, so to say, or the captainess, I don't know, but you get to steer your own ship and make set those intentions. But I think it's so important here to set those for yourself clearly at the beginning of this month and every month, and then not to make yourself wrong if on the flip side you're like, hey, I don't want to sell this month, I do want to chill the F out, then to not be mad when it's not your biggest sales month of the year, to see that's just not the most fair thing to do to yourself. So I appreciate all of this. Let's see. Shari says, oh, good point. My first 10K month was 18K in December of 2019 too. So much evidence here. Yes. Nosha says, you still look amazing here, and there's no IG filter. Literally better, actually. I love you. You're so good for my my vanity. I appreciate you. Shari says that blue sweater is really working for her, and the greenery in the background echoing the inner king glow. I love you guys so much. You have to tell me, and then we promise we'll get to the topic at hand. How are we feeling about? I'm like not sure how I feel about the style of the hole cuts in the sweaters. I got a couple this season. I'm like back and forth with them because when your hair covers them, I feel like it almost looks like you have hair popping out of the holes. But anyway, thank you very much. And the flowers are from one of my really good girlfriends, so it's fun to have that in the background. So I love you all tremendously. Thanks for feeding my vanity ego. So let's talk how to bring in potential clients. So I want to go over 3 really practical, actionable things, steps, strategies everyone can take. Obviously, you don't need to do all of the things. That's not what this is about. But I want to, this is going to be so basic. I feel like the theme of my calls with clients recently at every stage of business has been really looking at how can we be basic bitches and review the basics in business and just do them better and see it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And excuse my French, but I think that we sometimes just forget that. And I think our online space right now is just in this really, our spaces go through different seasons. I think it's in this really funny season of either things need to be so complicated and like either super complicated and like super like it's super secret and mystical. I mean, I think that's always a thing in marketing, or like the pendulum almost swings the other way where it's like you don't need any strategy at all and no action at all. And I just want to bring us back to a little groundedness here of here's just some really practical, basic things you probably know to be true, but sometimes we just all forget and need a reminder because we just all forget and need a reminder, but also because of the stories that can come up with the month of December. And to look at like, these are just 3 easy, practical ways every business owner can generate leads in their business. And then we'll just talk about the mindset because, I can't not touch on the mindset behind why we possibly resist some of these. And again, I feel like I say this a lot on live streams, but it always feels important to say when we're talking about things like, with mindset as well, but with strategy, remember there is no one size fits all formula. This is a live stream where I'm talking to all of y'all. Like, I don't know everyone's business here. So take what resonates, works for you, apply it to you, because I just feel like that's always an important thing to say here. And okay, just seeing if there were any comments there. So the first one here that I think is just the easiest for every single business owner, and I would say this is one of the ones or one of the strategies for bringing in leads that I think clients resist the most. And I think and at every stage, like I think this is one of those things where I think we sometimes have this story that business owners who are making multi-6 figures or 7 figures, like they know everything in business, they never have resistance, they never have something come up, they never like need to be reminded of something they already know to be true. And I just like want to normalize, because I have clients at every stage of business, that this is just the stuff everyone needs sometimes, like a light shined on them and a reminder. And clients of mine who are at every stage of business need to continue to sell and bring in leads. So I think that can just be a helpful reminder first and foremost. But that is really to look at, I call it the low-hanging fruit strategy. You've probably heard me talk about this, but if we think about a tree, the top of the tree, the fruit at the top of the tree is the high-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit on the tree is just the easiest to reach. It's just like what's right in front of you. And what I find as humans, especially high achievers, especially those of you who want to have a story that things need to be hard, and I think also for those of you who maybe have some necessarily fear around selling, but I think where it can feel like when you have close relationships with people, those people it's like yucky to sell to, and it's only like okay to sell to strangers. I think this is where there can be the most resistance around looking at the low hanging fruit strategy. And specifically with bringing in leads this week, when we're looking at your low-hanging fruit strategy, what I like to remind clients who like want to bring in leads and want to have more people coming through the door, whether it's this month or January or February, most of you, if you've been in business for a second and you've been showing up at all and you've been building relationships at all, most of you already have some people in front of you that you've been building a relationship with that you could probably bring through the door as a lead or as a client. And I'm a really big fan of not only reaching out to or following up with those people who you already have a know, like, and trust, like I think we talked about this on another live stream, but just a connection with. But I find for many of my clients, especially if they're using different strategies to, whether it's any workshops or free sessions or anything like this, have a list of people they've connected with who maybe weren't ready 3 months ago, who maybe weren't ready a year ago even, but who are still in their world. And again, I know for everyone, like, I know you all know this, and I think it can just be so helpful just to like have that little like reminder in your head. I literally had a client today say to me, she's like, I know this. She's like, this is why we all need coaching, because we just get so in our day to day and just so kind of like in our own world that it's just easy to forget these things. And so what I would say is like one of the easiest ways to bring in some leads is to first look at what are the leads you've already nurtured and how can you reach out to them? How can you follow up with them? How can you create a touch point with them? And just seeing if there's, okay, no comments there. The comments show up a little weirdly through this thing, so just trying to make sense there. So I think this is very, very simple and very practically, like in terms of like what the strategy is there, but just to break it down even more simply, and then we'll touch on the mindset for a little bit and then the other two pieces there. But I would literally look at this as, who are those people I've already built a relationship with, who've already expressed some sort of interest in my work, who weren't ready at that point? And what is my opportunity here to touch base with them, to check in with them, to give them a personalized invite, to follow up with them? I mean, I talk a lot about follow-ups. I think follow-ups are people forget about follow-ups as well, conveniently. But I would see this not just as a follow-up, but really as that personal invitation, personal invitations just always work well, y'all. And whether that's you're launching a big group program or you're selling one-on-one, I think with something like this as well, so often, I know when I have clients launching, it's almost like this feels like this only works for a one-on-one model. And I would say if you're launching a program, if you have something where you have more seats to fill, like, this is just the beautiful, beautiful opportunity for everyone. And my guess is everyone here has at least one person in their orbit who's just sort of like sitting there on the fence. And this is just a really beautiful opportunity to invite them off the fence, so to say, and to just really think through that and to let this be a part of your regular strategy where it's like you're just consistently doing this and doing those touch points and check-ins with people. I think one of the biggest, because I wanted to touch on some of the mindset around each of this, I think one of the biggest stories I notice for clients come up around this is if they wanted it, they would already have invested. And I think that's just so fascinating for all of us, because I think about myself when there's something I want. I mean, how many things can I think about where it's like, I want something and I haven't bought it yet or I haven't invested yet, and how just simply not true that story and narrative is when I put myself into my own buying shoes. And yes, there are many things when I want them, I buy them right away. And there's lots of reasons I'm not ready to invest in something yet. There's lots of reasons why the timing isn't right for me. There's lots of reasons I get in my own way. There's lots of reasons why I get busy and I have a tab open on my computer for 3 weeks to remind myself to go back and buy something. And we're talking about things that aren't even like emotionally tied. We're talking about like actual items. And most of us are asking people to invest large sums of money in offers that are more than just like a simple like, do you like this item or not, that can kick up a lot for people. So I think just remember that the whole idea, if they wanted it, they would have already invested or bought. Or if they haven't invested yet, it means they're in like working with someone else or interested in someone else. And I would say that's just simply not true. And what I've seen to be true more often than not is so often they're also waiting for like that sign that you're the person to hire, that it's safe for them to. And it's amazing how simply you can create that sign for someone by reaching out to them. The piece of evidence I love to share with clients sometimes is I have clients who have told me, well, two things, told me legitimately how reaching out to them helped them know I cared and helped them know that I actually wanted to work with them, and how good it felt on the receiving end. Because I think one of the other stories and narratives for people can be it's annoying, or that you're bothering someone if you're reaching out, if they haven't purchased yet, or you connected 6 months or a year ago. And the other thing I've had said to me is how someone who doesn't know me and my work as well, so it's especially true when I was getting fully booked for the first time and I didn't have as much content out, right? And there wasn't as much you could like kind of find out about me as a coach. How I have one client who comes to mind who I'm still working with in particular, who told me, I was talking to you and someone else who actually had more like credentials or whatever that was, but because I simply was reaching out while she was in that like kind of gap time and reached back out to personally invite her, it just made her feel like I cared, but it also just made me seem that much more confident essentially and had her feel safer. And like that was really the differentiator that brought her over the fence. So I'm sharing that and reflecting that here just for some of the noise that I know comes up. And I know just because I hear from clients all the time how much noise there can be around this. And just to normalize like what a simple strategy this can be and how easy it could be to bring in some leads this week for, I would bet, almost everyone in this group. Hey Claire, nice to see you. I love the fun faces on this. Let me see, is this, I feel like ink was weird on this. Okay. So the next one here, because I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. So the next one here is, let me just pull up my notes. So this one again, we're like basic bitch strategy here today on our live stream and just going through the basics and reminders for everyone. Claire, if you're like hopping in late, like I know this is stuff everyone knows and just really helpful reminders. Yes, you know this. Are you doing this if you want to bring in leads? So if we want to bring in leads this week, next month, one of the things I also love to check in with clients are what is that clear next step micro offer that we are selling our faces off around. And if we're not sure on what that is, how can we make sure we get really clear around that and sell our faces off around that? And so what I mean by that is, let me see. There's a comment here. See, I come in late. It's so funny. Noshiba says, I most definitely booked with you because you gave a fuck. Lots of people don't care unless you're on a sales call and you cared a ton with a long intentional message before we even met. Thank you for sharing that. I love you for saying that. And I do care so much. Not to the point where I'm taking things on for clients, because I think that's really important to have that, to not take things on of your clients, but I just love you for reflecting that, and it's just so true. And I think that's just so nice for people to see the evidence around. I think people can really tell the difference. And what I think I'm hearing from you say is, and that wasn't annoying, that was letting you know I give so many fucks and I care, and that can be a difference maker, as opposed to, oh my gosh, it's annoying, or oh my gosh, I haven't invested yet because I'm never going to. Claire says, I love that. Selling your faces off. Yes, selling your faces off. I'm all for selling your face off. And if you want to sell more, sell more. I feel like I say that all the time. But specifically, so going back to the second piece here for bringing in leads, specifically, I think sometimes what happens, especially when we're, talking about this with another client today who's doing incredible, who's making like over 6 figures in business. And I say that just to normalize how this noise comes up for people at every stage in business. But just that like panic that can set in when it's like, it's almost like everyone can, you don't have to share, this feels true for you, everyone, but I find there's just this funny thing in our online space where, because we're so wrapped around monthly income, that the first of the month hits and it's almost like this, like the timer has been reset and the like metrics and the scale that you measure yourself against has been reset to 0, and it starts again every single month. And I was talking about this with a client who, like, because then that panic was setting in of like, oh my gosh, it's a new month and I have to race to like hit these income numbers and I'm like against the clock and I'm like all this pressure here. I think what happens then is we just lose sight of the basics we know are true and that work, that brought in the revenue last month and the month before. And I think sometimes when we're in that place of panic and frenetic energy and like needing to rush to hit that next income goal, or to even hit, the income goal for that month or December, because no one buys in December, or whatever that noise is, what I find is really common is to suddenly either like crank out new offers from nowhere, or to jump to like your highest ticket, like the thing you really want people to buy. So I'll use myself as an example. My main core offer, y'all know I like only sell one-on-one, but I have variations of how I sell one-on-one, and my main core offer is a 6-month coaching program. If I was an example of what we're talking about here, this would be like, okay, it's December 1st. like no one buys, but I need to make money. And like, well, if all that noise was coming up, the pattern I see happen so often is then like, okay, so I just need to like run out there and book a 6 month spot. Ideally have them pay in full so that like my brain can feel safe, even though personally I don't love paying in full. But, and then to really push selling the 6 month coaching program. And so that would look like all of a sudden, every live stream, every post, right? I'm really pushing my 6 month coaching program. When the truth, like the reality is if we like zoom out and we take the frenetic energy out and we take this like whole, I'm like now racing against this 30 or 31 day window and all of just like the anxiety and pressure that can come around hitting income that like almost has our brain forget what works in business. If we like zoom out and we look at kind of like what works in the rest of business, we can say it's not that I can't like go talking about my 6 month program all the time. It's not that that won't work to book in a client. And that's a really long jump for most people who are brand new to me, who even have been consuming my content. Like that's just a really long leap for me to like dive into. And it's really coming from this place of scarcity and fear and worry around money, right? Like what's underneath putting this offer out there. Or if I suddenly was like, I'm going to launch a group program this month because I need to make money. Same thing there, where it's like there's nothing wrong with either one, but they're really coming from this place of scare. That's not even a word. I made up the word fear city a couple of years ago, but that's what we're talking about here, fear and scarcity, right? It's really coming from that place, and it's almost having us miss the plot when it comes to what works in business, which like if we really think about it, like the easiest way is to like not worry so much about filling that 6 month program spot or the creating a new offer, but it is to look at how do we bring in someone into our world, into the next step in the journey, and to trust that our sales process works, and to trust that our sales journey works, and to trust that building relationships works. And if we play with that mindset, if we like put the fear city to the side for a second and we come back where we're like not operating from all of that energy, then what usually is going to be the easiest way to reach those income goals, and what I see for my clients when they're suddenly blowing up and having their biggest income month, and it feels like, I think I put this in the email for this live stream, where like the client who a couple months ago was like, I hate sales and nothing works and no one's buying, and then we look at like, oh my gosh, they just had a 10K or a 20K month, like what was the difference? So often it was that they put that fear city to the side and they just looked at what is that micro offer, what is that micro next step in the relationship that I can really focus on selling my face off around. Claire, this is where selling my face off came from. And really focus on selling that, because if I can just focus on selling that next micro offer, next micro step in the journey, right, I know those steps are going to lead people through my sales process. If I can remove all of that desperation and urgency, which has me jump and like ask people to put a ring on it before we've even had a first date, right, it actually makes it so much easier to bring in leads in the first place. Hopefully this is making sense here. Let's see. There's all these. Okay, I just apparently suck at reading comments, y'all. No, Shiva says 1,000% not annoying, but rather was a difference maker and why I chose you. Best decision ever. I love you so much. No sales come from that state of panic. Hi, Laura, back. Fear City, I like it. LOL. Don't live in Fear City. Get it? Yes. Don't. I was thinking Fear City, but I like Fear City even better, like as a city. For those of you listening, she spelled it Fear and then city with like a capital City. So yes, no living in Fear City. And if you are taking a side trip, a side vacation in the month of December to Fear City, because that is a normal thing the human brain does, and that is a normal thing for people to do, let that be a vacation your brain takes, not a vacation your business takes, and not where you make business strategy or action plans from, right? I think for everyone here, like I'm telling you, like these are like clients at every stage of business. Like this is just what human brains love to do, especially when we like all operate in the online space where there, it's just noise that can infiltrate our human brain. So if you're taking a little side jaunt to Fear City, that is totally okay. That's just not the place we want to make our strategic decisions for in our business, and we just want to return back to just like a nice neutral ground. I am loving the funny Laura says me too, loving the funny comments here. So with just on the like really practical strategy here, and I know I keep saying this, but it just feels so important to say, I know everyone in this group, just because I know a lot of everyone, I don't know literally everyone in this group, but I know everyone gets these concepts. So I'm bringing these back up as reminders for those of you who might have taken a trip to Fear City, not because I don't think anyone here understands these concepts in business. This is similar to what I would say to a client who I know is super smart, it gets their business and is super strategic. These are just the things we just forget when we're in those other spaces in our brain. So what we're talking about here when we're looking at selling your face off around that clear micro step, that next step in the customer journey, I would really look at what is that offer you're selling. So for me, the 6-month coaching package. For someone else, it might be a group program, but whatever that is, and rewind the tape all the way back to what is the easiest entry point for someone into your world after they, you first become visible with them. What is the first step most people take? If you look back at other months where you've probably sold this offer, what was that easiest first step that people took with you that allowed you to build the relationship and nurture them, that then sold into your offer? And that's going to look different for everyone, right? For some people, this is going to be our traditional opt-in. For some people, it's going to be a freebie. For some people, it's going to be a webinar. Do the kids still say webinar, y'all? Or is that not what the kids say anymore? But for some people, it's going to be a masterclass. Like I've done masterclasses in the past. For some people, it's going to be free sessions or free calls. For some people, I have clients who do paid intro sessions, right? And I say that just so we can see, like, there's so many different entry points. One way is not better than the other. Every business is going to be a little different. But looking at what is that first step, and then really what I'm playing with clients around, we're looking at this, if we want to increase the number of leads we're bringing in, is really looking at a couple of basics here with, yes, how can you sell your face off around this? Meaning, how can you make sure you're putting this out in front of people regularly? Otherwise, we just create that story where like, well, if people wanted it, they would have hired or booked. And I feel like I've said this on every live stream recently, but so often with clients when they're saying that, I have them pull up their social media and like, but where do we even offer this to anyone? So sell your face off around it. And then what I would just offer with whatever that next step in the journey is, that micro offer, is really looking at what is that small fire you can put out for people that just helps someone get that quick win, and not in a way where I feel like we hear quick win and make that wrong. But I would think about this almost through the lens of, yeah, they still do this. So everyone keeps hearing about the gym I just joined, but I just joined a gym. It's brand new, and they have like a cafe in the gym, or where they make like smoothies and things like that. And one of the things they've started doing is, like, when I finish my spin class and I come outside, there's like conveniently someone down there who's like giving these like lovely little samples of their smoothie. It's a quick win for me, right? It's a quick little taste. It's very satisfying. It's very tasty. It's very refreshing after my spin class. It's like they put out a small fire, which is, I'm sweaty, I'm thirsty, my electrolytes are down. They brought the perfect thing to to give me a quick win, to literally put out a small fire for me, in this case, quench my thirst. And they've just given me a little taste. And of course, when they did, I'm like, this is delicious and this is wonderful. I'm going to walk my ass upstairs and go buy one of these. That's all we're looking at here. But I would play with, like, what is that easy win, and not make easy win wrong. I find one of the biggest places that entrepreneurs get in their own way here is they put so much pressure, especially if you're someone who struggles with feeling good enough. They put so much pressure on making this initial step like the most amazing thing ever. And instead of giving a quick win or a small taste, it's like, I'm going to give you a whole smoothie and a burger and a side of fries. And I don't even know if you need this, but I'll give you a back rub. And I'm using the example from the gym in case that's not tracking, which is like lovely. I mean, if someone wants to give me a back rub and a smoothie and a burger and all of these things after my spin class, like, maybe that's cool. Most likely I don't want all of that, and it's a weird and a little turn off, but let's just say I wanted all of that. The challenge with that is I'm good. I'm like stuffed now. It's not even that you've given me too much. It's just that I'm like there's no room for anything. And so we've just delayed the sales process here. And so I would just offer for everyone here, like if you're playing with a strategy to bring in leads, like let this be easy on you and really check in with where your enoughness, just like we were checking in with Fear City, check in with where your enoughness is having you really want to over deliver, and not from a place of like we're trying to hoard value or like hold things back, but just where is this having you essentially stuff your potential clients so that instead of getting that quick win and quenching that thirst where they want more, we're sort of like stuffing them to the point of overwhelm or like where they feel like they need to go like chill for a second before they're ready for the next step. I know she says a back rub. I mean, let's be real. I would not be mad at a back rub. I don't know. Actually, I'm kind of a germ freak. I probably would be weird at a back rub from a stranger that I wasn't like asking for. But I don't know. Back rubs are pretty good. But I think everyone gets what I'm saying here. So I would just play with here, really looking at how can you simplify, how can you really look to put out one small fire, solve one clear problem, right? How can we do less better instead of feeling this need? And just check in with where is this coming from? Am I wanting to deliver more because like I really feel like this is going to put out a small fire and this feels really beneficial? And I'll use an example of that. I gave Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout, our 6-week sales course. I gave that away for free for 2 years. That is absolutely putting out one small fire, but it like that's 6 weeks, like that's a lot. I definitely did that from the place of I really feel good giving this, not from a place of like I don't feel like I'm good enough, and from the place of like very much knowing I am essentially giving the back rub and all of the juices and stuffing my client, like potential clients a little bit, but I'm okay because I know I'm like playing the long game here, and I know at the end of that they're going to build a relationship with me and absolutely need more support with their sales process. So I'm okay with that, but it's like that was very much a long game. Had that come from the place of like I need to bring in a lead or I want to bring in a lead this week, and I'm doing this because I feel like this is the only way someone's going to think I'm good enough, we get to see how many different ways that would have potentially backfired. I don't know if that's the best example, but just to see examples of this doesn't mean you can't give more. But if you're really looking at how can I bring some leads in right now, I would play with like how can I solve one clear specific problem, put out one small specific fire, give one small specific taste. Some of you have businesses where you're not necessarily like solving problems and it's more about giving that desire or pleasure or joy, but just looking at how can you make that a little more bite-sized. And then I would really play with letting it be something that's an easy yes for people, right? The easier you make it for someone to say yes, the more leads you're going to bring through. For those of you, I have clients who we kind of have to make it a harder yes for people. So like that's the place where you might want to put an application or put up a paywall or something like that. But I would just really check in with what are your goals. If your goal is to bring in some leads this week or this month, how can you make that a really easy next step, a really easy yes? And part of that easy yes is not just like money, but also thinking about time, right? If we're giving people the back rub and the whole meal and the whole thing, that's, to me, if I'm coming out of my spin class and I'm going home for dinner, it's not just like that I don't want all of that. It's like I got places to be right now. So like that's a hard yes for me. Whereas if you give me a little sample, that's an easy thing for me to say yes to and consume in that moment. So hopefully that difference makes sense there. And then sell your face off around this. So this is where I think we just want to remember the win for you is if you want to bring in more leads, and this is how you're going to bring in more leads, the best way to do so after you've gotten clear on this and just kind of like brought yourself back to like grounded, like this is my strategy, like this is what I know works in my business, this is what I know brings people into my world, is to like remember the lever you get to press here is to go sell your face off, to go shout this from the rooftops. And if you're not doing that, this is the opportunity to lean into. Laura says, I love the small fire concept. Thank you. So my pleasure. I'm so glad that resonates. And obviously, not everyone has fires, but I'm glad that part resonates. So I think we talked about this already, but just in terms of where the resistance can come up around this, I really do think one of the biggest pieces of resistance is that enoughness. And enoughness is just a really fascinating thing. And if enoughness comes up for you in terms of feeling not good enough, like you're not doing enough, like you're not qualified enough, anything here where it's like there's a lack of enoughness, it's another form of lack and scarcity, but it tends to be around our own value, our own worth. I really want to normalize. This does not mean that now there's a problem here where this doesn't get to work for you when we're talking about what comes up for people. And if this is something for you, this isn't now like, now I need to go solve my enoughness before I get to lean into this strategy or before I get to make money in my business. I think just normalizing, if that's what comes up for you, it sneaks in different ways. And one of the places I see this sneak in, and just a place to be mindful and to check yourself on, the same way we were saying, people go over and take a vacation to Fear City. That's normal. We just don't want to make decisions from that place. Same thing here. If enoughness comes up, that can be normal for certain people if that's one of the things that comes up for you. We just really want to check in with when you're not feeling good enough, when you feel like you're not doing enough, when you feel like you're not worthy enough or qualified enough. Is this the place that you're creating this entry level opportunity? When I say entry, I mean that like entry point, that micro offer, that next step in the customer journey. Is that where you're creating this from? If so, this is the place I would just really hit the pause button, go love on yourself, go get back into that place of, if I knew and trusted and really believed I was enough here, then if I took a look at my business and I took a look at this customer journey, what would be the small fire to put out? What would I really believe would be a really valuable next step that I would trust is enough? Because that's where you come up with like, oh, I would give someone a sample of this smoothie and trust that's enough for them to have their appetite like wet, to have that like small fire of thirst quenched, and to have them want to take that next step with me. So I would just invite people to play around with that, because I think that's probably one of the biggest mindset pieces I see here. And then again, just that frenetic urgency of just checking in with yourself with, are you wanting to rush the customer journey because of your own urgency, because of your own financial needs, or because of your own want to soothe the lack of enoughness coming up? Again, these are super normal things that come up for humans. I wouldn't have a job if this wasn't a normal thing that came up for humans. That doesn't make you wrong. That doesn't mean that this means you can't bring in leads. What I would say is this is just the place to go do the mindset work, to go get the support around, right? Just not the place we want to make the business decisions from. So again, if you're feeling that urgency, like I've got to make money this month in December, I'm feeling that like the timer went down to 0, the month started at 0, if that's what's coming up for you, normal, right? This happens for so many people. That's the place to do the mindset work, not the place to bring over here to make that decision, because that's when we start making decisions that really have us create strategy from a place of urgency instead of what actually works in your business to bring in leads. I think that makes sense, but if anyone has a question around that, let me know. Okay, so the last one, I'm just seeing if I have any other notes here I want to share. Those are the main things there. Essentially, the last note I had here, just to remind everyone, is just, this really gets to be a place to exercise self-trust. I mean, we all talk about self-trust so much, right? I think self-trust is such a core pillar of what supports our business foundation from a mindset and energy perspective. And this is a place when we're talking about the customer journey, when we're talking about bringing in leads through those micro offers, through those micro next steps, this is a place really to lean into and to cultivate your own self-trust, but also the trust you have of your business and how business works in your customer journey. I was chatting about this with a client today, and we were talking about this whole idea of like, we were playing with the idea of like a recipe in business, but essentially when you make a recipe and you're cooking, if you're like making a cake, I think we talked about a cake on another episode. So we'll stick, or episode, this isn't the podcast, live stream. But we'll go with cakes again, right? If you have a recipe for a cake and you follow the recipe, you just kind of trust, if I put these ingredients into this bowl and I mix it up and I put it in the oven, I just kind of trust that's going to make a cake. You're not sort of like, oh, I don't trust that this recipe is going to make a cake. Let me go find something else. But what you also don't do is get so frenetic because you need a cake to be ready now that you like jump over the whole step of getting the ingredients and mixing them and just like turn on the oven and throw a pan in there and hope that that somehow makes a cake, right? We just like trust the recipe and like trust all of that and trust that process to work. And that's the same thing to play here. And just a really, like, if you notice, especially this time of month, right? The lack of trust getting kicked up. This can be a lack of personal trust, but I think so often it can be a lack of trust in business and in your business and in your customer journey and what works for you in your business. And this just gets to be an opportunity to look at, where can I get really clear on what I trust, what I believe to be true in my business, in my customer journey, in what works for me in my business? How can I really identify that for myself? almost like write the recipe for yourself so that you can be really clear where it's like, when I do these things, when people come in through this customer journey, when I bring in leads and we do X, Y, and Z, this reliably leads to a baked cake. This reliably leads to clients and money at the end of the month, so that you can take your own like stuff that's coming out and go put that to the side and come back to like, I've just got this recipe here that works for me. And I think that's part of the trust we're talking about, that I just want everyone to notice if that's coming up, because I think so often we hear trust, we think just self-trust. And I think there's self-trust and business trust. And that's really the lever to play with if you feel this, like, yes, it's a basic strategy, but just where we can get in our own ways with this strategy. I think that makes sense, but let me know if y'all have questions. The last one, how are we doing on time? I'm always so long-winded, y'all. Thanks for hanging with me. I've got one more here, and we talked about this at some point. I think we talked about this on the podcast maybe last year, but it felt really important to bring back. It's been very relevant for my clients recently, so I figured it would be relevant for everyone here. I think I've had a conversation with so many different people over the last month or two around this. So I think it's just a good one to revisit. But it's really looking at, if you want to have December be a month where you're selling more, if you want to bring in more leads this week, next week, and all of next year, to really look at the daily sales actions you're taking, and to look specifically at the direct sales actions you're taking. So I'm just going to give like a recap here. I'll see if I can find the live stream or the podcast around this, but I really believe in a differentiation between passive and direct sales actions. These are terms I made up, so I will explain what I mean by those. But passive sales actions are absolutely sales actions that have you bring in leads, but I find them to be more passive in that we're not directly asking someone to take the next step in the journey with us. We are more passively showing up and doing things that contribute to sales, that contribute to getting visible, getting in front of people, bringing people in our customer journey, but they're a lot more passive in terms of what creates that sale. So for example, when I put a piece of value content into the Facebook group, that is absolutely a sales action, but it is a very passive sales action. When I tell you that I have a client spot available and I tell you the next step you can take with me to book a discovery call, or when I say we have the private workshop in a couple weeks where we're going to look at that proven 6 and 7 sales call framework, right? So that you can really have a sales call without a script, but that allows you to show up and really powerfully and transparently lead a sales call. And I invite you to go click the link and to go pay money and to book yourself into that, right? That is a very direct sales action. And so both passive and direct sales actions are absolutely a part of what brings in sales in your business and generates revenue. And a lot of business owners tend to have the pendulum swing from one side to the other. If we go like traditional bro marketing side, it can be very, 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 very direct sales action heavy. If we go into more of our like spiritual mindset, like heart-centered, caring space of sales, I think it can be very passive sales action oriented. And I think the opportunity, if you want to bring in more leads, is finding that happy medium, but also finding that happy medium that allows you to take a daily direct sales action, because this isn't about like one is better than the other, but it is that direct sales action I find that's really helpful for people who are, it's kind of what we were talking at the beginning of the live stream, who are on the fence or who do really need support from you and who really need you to be the leader in the sales process. And if we think about a sales process and we think about you as the business owner, really and truly, your role is to lead that sales process. Your job there is to create the safety. Your job is to be the leader, and not in this way where like, follow the leader. I don't know, like I think there's a lot of weird noise that can come up around leadership, but literally in that you're leading this process, because if you're not leading this process, why would anyone be buying from you, right? Like that's just like makes sense. If someone's going to be paying you money for something, that you would be leading that process, which means taking that direct sales action really is a way to lead people very directly, very clearly, in a way that is very safe for them, so they don't have to guess, so they don't have to try to figure it out, so they don't get lost along the way, so they know this is the exact next step for me to take. And I think this is an opportunity almost every business owner has. If you're a client of mine, you probably hate me for this, but love me a little bit for it. But most of the time I'm telling clients, yes, we're talking about selling your face off with the free like, or then micro action. It doesn't have to be free, but it really is looking at how are we increasing those direct sales actions, and really looking at how can you sell directly every day. I think I said this on Instagram recently. We were talking about celebrating the $1 million revenue in 4 years, and we're doing a live stream in a couple weeks around that because I want to demystify it, as much of that as possible, and the 700K in 2 years from one-on-one. And one of the like not so secret secrets is I just sell every single day. Like it's not that complicated. And so but I just sell directly every day in my business. And anyone you're looking up to, whether they're making 10K a month or $1 million a month, at any stage, right? Every business is different in their business journey. Every business is different in terms of their capacity to bring in revenue because their offers and all of that. But what you'll notice is they're just selling directly very, very often. And so if you want to bring in more leads, selling directly, like taking that direct sales action, is just going to be your win. And what I would say with this is I think most people know that. And I think this is probably the one that kicks up maybe the most resistance, because passive sales actions feel safer, right? Like the reason we love passive sales action high, like this was me my whole first year in business. I know I've shared this with y'all, but I am sometimes flabbergasted that I made money my first year in business because I put out maybe one direct sales post ever. So I probably preach this so much because I've been there and I know the difference. And I know the difference in terms of mindset, and I know the difference in terms of what happens when you are directly selling, in terms of literally the leads that come in through the door and the money in your bank account. Like, yes, for me, it was mostly mindset. And I do believe mindset is such a huge component of it, but the strategy and action doesn't go out the window. This is probably like the number one strategy and action step for me. And I think one of the biggest things here, though, is passive sales actions do work. And I think that's why it's confusing. Like, you can take enough passive sales action and bring in leads. It's just the really, 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 really slow path because it's just going to take people a lot longer to figure out who you are, what you do, and what that next step is that they can take with you. Whereas when you're marrying those passive sales actions with those direct sales actions, and I think the other piece of the direct sales action is that really is an embodiment of your confidence and of your leadership and of your trust in your offer and in your trust in that next step. And you're inviting someone into that. You're just speeding up the process for people because you're making it easy for them to take the next step. You're not making them do the heavy lifting and heavy work. And the way I think about it now that I've been like studying this for over I've been in business for 6.5 years, but I was in advertising, working sales before that. And I always joke but I don't think this is a joke. I learned how to sell waiting tables and working in a bar. So like, I've just been like studying what makes people successful and what makes people essentially want to buy for a long time in human behavior. And what I know when I think about when I was working in the bars, I always outsold everyone. This isn't like me making sometimes I did, like legitimately every bar I've ever worked in, every place I've ever waited tables, I like double, triple, quadruple sold what anybody else on the floor was. One of the reasons for that, we used to have I shared this story? I used to work at my best friend and I called it the Shack of Dreams, or no, Shack of Broken Dreams, because it was like this funny restaurant on Sunset Strip that I don't think exists anymore, but they had a 4-hour happy hour with 2-for-1 margaritas. So you can just imagine how drunk people would get. But one of the things that would happen for us, and I swear this is connected to bringing in leads and the direct sales action here, one of the things that we sold was this thing called a mega margarita. It was like this giant, disgusting, because it was so sweet, like margarita that had like 14 straws. And they would have competitions for whoever could sell the most of those would get like a bonus, like $100 or something like that. And like, I like to make money and I like a good competition. People on the floor would sell 3 of them and I would sell 22. Like, that's a very big difference. The reason I sold 22 is I had mastered directly selling and giving people a direct sales action for that mega margarita. It sounds like such a silly example, but everyone else like passively sold it, right? They hoped people would figure it out. They kind of like point to it on the menu. There was one girl who would like walk around with it and hope people would like see it. And I was like, why don't you just tell every single table about this amazing, because it was like a special, because there were extra shots in it or whatever. I would just tell every table and tell them that's what they needed to buy and ask them if they wanted to buy it. And I know this sounds so simple, but that was literally the only thing I did different from everyone else. And that is why I sold 22 to their 3. And so I got, to win that competition extra money. It's the same thing here in business with bringing in leads. And I think just seeing like, if that's happening in a bar with Mega Margaritas, think about how that plays out in the online space, right? Most of us are doing the equivalent to like trying to parade around our Mega Margarita and hoping people figure out what it is and that they should buy it and that's something they want. And then the people who are like selling 22 times more, maybe it's not 22 times more, but like whatever it is, 19 times more, right? The only difference is they're just telling people very directly, this is the thing you want to buy and inviting them into the next step. Like that's really the big difference maker. And that's what brings in more leads. So I would say for everyone, I'm just seeing the comments here because I went on my little rant here. But I think for everyone here, just seeing like it gets to be that simple, and then it's just the mindset part that I think can make it complicated. Let's see. Nishima says, so important to pull lessons from other industries. I totally agree with that. I think we can get from our own experiences. Everyone here, what is it? Daniel Pink, To Sell as Human. I think he does such a great job of explaining how, as humans, we are just selling all day, every day. We sell our kids on going to bed at a certain time. We just forget how like all the sales lessons. And then I think particularly looking at industries outside our own can be so valuable for just normalizing what's true in sales and business. Nishima says, dude, same. I was in beauty retail and I always sold more than the other girls. They didn't like me for that. It's so funny. I would actually have people ask me like what my secret was and what I did. I'm like, all I did was tell people to buy this and ask if they wanted to. And I'm just laughing because I think it's just so funny because it's funny because it's true and it's that simple. And I think it's just helpful for everyone listening where it's like it doesn't have to be more mysterious than that. I know Shiva says 3 to 22. Yes, beast mode. I'm also a little competitive. Yes, you actually were very clear on the sale, direct AF. Laura says, love this. And the direct sales action you took to simply tell them the offer and ask if they want it. It's not pushy or annoying or anything else that we sometimes worry will come off as. Exactly that. And I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to the mindset side of things around this. I think as a whole, it's very interesting to me the negative stories and connotations we have around sales. I think that is the number one thing I hear from people. It's like, I hate sales, I suck at sales, sales are yucky, sales are icky. And it's actually very interesting to me because I have I think just because that's just never been my story, I just have a very hard time seeing how sales are icky. But in my brain, and I think maybe this is helpful for everyone to hear, I mean, I'm happy to coach clients around that because I know where a lot of this comes from for people and it can have a lot to do with their experiences. But when we just practically look at it, it's like all we're doing when we're selling is saying like, hey, I've got this thing. I think it's pretty awesome. Do you want it? Like, there's nowhere in that that's icky, selly, or like pushy, manipulative. But I think the other thing that comes up, Laura, and you'll have to tell me if you've seen this with your clients or if you see this as true. I think the other thing, I was talking about this with someone last week on an intensive, there's this worry, I think, because there's such negative connotation around what it means to be salesy and to sell, that I find in our space in particular, there's a lot of worry about like, but I don't want to seem like I'm being salesy. And we were looking at this client's content. She's like, can you just let me know if this is too salesy or if like it comes across like I'm selling? And I was teasing her a little bit because she can handle it. But I was like, why do we want this not to be salesy? Like, why are we hoping that this won't come across as a sales post or like you're selling because you are trying to sell, right? Like that's the whole thing we're doing. And I'm being a little silly around this, but just to normalize, I think that is one of the biggest things that trips people up around taking direct sales actions is there's this noise of directly selling is bad, it's yucky, it's manipulative, it's icky, it's all these things. So yes, I hear you, Kim, I want to bring you more leads. I'm going to directly sell, but how can I do that in a way that doesn't seem like I'm directly selling? And I think the narrative has become, I have to figure out how to do this almost like covertly. And I think that's the part that then trips us up, where then it turns into leaning into the passive sales actions instead of taking direct sales actions, where I would offer for everyone who's in business to make money, for everyone who's selling something you believe in, that you have integrity around, that you have an offer around where you're genuinely making an offer and letting someone make a healthy, adult, empowered decision and choice around it. There's no reason to pretend, like there's no reason to like bury the lead or to pretend you're not selling. The whole idea with a direct sales action is how can we just make it as blatantly obvious as possible? So I know I'm like teasing around this a little bit, and I very much have compassion and understanding around like how deep some of these stories and fears and things that can come up around making offers. And I know this can often be around things that have nothing to do with business and nothing to do with sales. So I don't want to minimize any of that at all for any of you who have, some of the deeper things that can come up around being visible or asking for a sale or rejection or what can come up there. And just from a very neutral business, like looking at sales from a very, very neutral lens, I think it's just helpful for us to see the whole idea is for people to know you're selling. The whole idea for us is to make it as clearly obvious. That's the whole idea of the direct sales action, where it's like, yes, of course I'm selling. Yes, there's an awesome drink here. I think it's great. Do you want it? Or I have an awesome offer. I'm putting it into a post. Do you want it? And making it very clear that that is a sales post or a sales offer. Let's see. Oh, the same comment popped up twice. So let me know if that makes sense, but I think that's just to normalize that part. And then I think to the other piece here then, just for everyone, because we've been kind of talking about like direct, clear, actionable strategy to bring in those leads, and then just some of the mindset noise that can come up. Also say, just to totally normalize this, that I would say the direct sales actions are probably one of the places where there's so much noise here. And that gets to be the place to give yourself grace and compassionate curiosity when you're looking at what that is. Like, if you're hearing me and you're like, yes, that makes complete sense. That doesn't feel icky. That doesn't feel gross. Of course, taking a direct sales action. And then you go to do it and you're like, why does this feel so horrible? I do not want to put this out there in my seeming sale. Like, if you're feeling that, I think that just gets to be a place where you don't make yourself wrong. Don't give yourself a hard time. This doesn't mean what you're feeling or what you're telling yourself is true. Of course, you can still make that direct sales action. And this is a place where a lot of stuff can get churned up. And what I have found to be true through my own experience, 6.5 years in business, right? We're making great money now. That was not always the case in my business. So I've had the beauty of myself going through the stages of being scared to sell. I was terrified. I was petrified to sell, y'all. Like, it took me a hot second to even post content on social media because I had so much noise coming up for me and so much like a visceral response in my body. And just supporting clients for 6.5 years through this and literally being on thousands of calls with them. I'm sharing this just to normalize if you're feeling those things come up around this. Like, we've got the clear practical strategy action. This is where coaching becomes so beneficial because there is just stuff that comes up. And what I find for many business owners is it has nothing to do with actually business or with actually selling or with actually taking like your offer. So often what can come up here has stuff to do with completely, it's fascinating how different it is for everyone, but just the stuff that comes up in business and selling and putting yourself out there and taking a direct sales action, right? Where you're being visible in a different way. You're opening yourself up for rejection in a different way. Like, just how that can kick up and be triggering or hit on different stories that come up for people. In my case, it hit on a lot of trauma stuff that, like, who knew? Like, turns out I had to process and deal with that first before I could show up and sell. And so I say that just to be as transparent as humanly possible in a live stream setting, but just to normalize that for everyone, because I want what we're talking about is like, yes, the basic bitch strategy. Like, how can we make this a super basic and just like work those basics and see it doesn't have to be more complicated, and you can bring in leads this week and next week. And also to look at if the basics are feeling challenging, or if your brain is wanting you to do everything but the basics, or if you're wanting, in this example here, to lean into all the passive sales action instead of the direct sales action, most likely that's because there's something coming up on the mindset side of things. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of, yes, strategy and action, yes, the clarity in your business, but that mindset piece, because this then just becomes the work to do. And this just becomes the place to give yourself that grace around that and to show up to the best of your ability and to take that practical action. Because what I find is strategy and practical action, when we take that and we can connect it to, hey, I just showed up and took the direct sales action and nothing bad happened and I'm safe, right? You can link that and use that for evidence that helps move your mindset forward while you're doing the mindset work. And I think that's been a theme of our live stream today here, to see the mindset piece can be going on, but you don't have to wait until that's all like sorted out. Or I personally don't love the term fixed, because I think that implies that people are broken or have things to fix, but I think that's a narrative a lot of people have. But in general, like, your mindset work processing through things, changing stories, rewriting and rewiring your brain is probably going to be a lifelong journey. You don't have to wait until that's in a perfect place to bring in leads. And this just gets to be a place where you get to notice that and then see how can you take even a small micro action step with a direct sales action and allow that strategy and allow that action to create some safety to actually pull the mindset side of things forward for you, while also normalizing if stuff's coming up that maybe that actually has nothing to do with your ability to bring in leads or your how yucky or icky your positive or negative sales are. Like maybe that has everything to do with something else, and the strategy and the action of putting yourself out there is just creating a mirror, is just creating a lens, is just creating an opportunity to work through what's coming up there. Hopefully that part makes sense. Let's see. Laura says, yes, I do see this with my clients too, and it's something I still put an effort around myself. I think the bro marketing style gave everyone an icky feeling, and that's sadly given all of sales a bad taste. It's not fair to sales. And Laura says, yes, so helpful. Yeah, it's really not fair to sales. And this is so funny. We use the term bro marketing so often. I have to say, sometimes when we're talking about that, I use the term too. And as you were just saying that, Laura, I was thinking like, I don't even know if I know exactly what that means. And I think that's just like, I think even that's just fascinating. I'm discovering this as we're talking through that, where I think there's almost this way too, where that's just become so a part of our industry's vernacular and something we don't want to do, that to the degree of I'm not exactly even sure what, like maybe I'm doing some of those things I don't even know because I'm not even sure that I identify with it, but we just so are like, well, that must be wrong and bad. And so I think that's just even an interesting thing for everyone to notice, where it's like, where do we even have these stories around sales where, and maybe everyone else knows what this means and this is just a Kim thing, but just noticing where how easy it is for us in our space to hear things, to pick up on things that are like bad in air quotes or good in air quotes, that we then want to make sure we're doing differently or leaning into, and how easy that is to do without even really knowing what that means. And like here I am using that term, and as you said that, Laura, I think that was the first time that clicked in, where I was like, well, that's so fascinating. I don't even know if I could exactly identify what that is. I imagine it'd be like the really pushy buy now stuff. The other thought that comes up for me to close on this, and then I've been live for so long, y'all, and then I will let everyone go because I need to check in with my clients before I go to my spin class at the gym I was just talking about, where hopefully they give me a smoothie sample. But the other thought that comes up for me, and I think this is just really helpful for everyone to play with, is have you personally had a yucky sales experience where you've been on the buying side of it? If so, that's really great, because then you have the evidence to know like, great, these are some of the things that just don't feel great, so I'm not going to employ those sales tactics. And notice how many places you've probably been sold to where it felt really, really, really good, and how that probably outweighs the handful of yucky experiences. And I think just seeing that ratio, because our brain's just wired to notice -3 to 1. And so if we've had a handful of not feeling great experiences on the client buyer side, right, like those just jump out to us. I go out to eat a lot. I live in New York City. I'm a typical New Yorker. I don't cook. I get takeout, right? If 9 out of 10 meals are great, but I have one crappy experience, one crappy customer service experience, one time the food delivery takes forever, that's the one that stands out in my mind, just because that's how our brain is wired. And so I think it's helpful to know, like, okay, let me learn from other industries, let me not bring this into my business. And I think just for everyone, just to notice most of our experiences, I would say, I know for mine, like the majority of the sales experience on the buying side is positive. I love being sold. Like I love being sold to personally, if it's something I want to buy and people are respecting me. So I think just notice that as well, so you can start to stack the evidence if you're someone who has resistance around direct sales actions, or like it feels like taking some of those steps to bring in leads kicks up a lot of noise. I would just play with like, yes, what are those negatives so that you can learn from them, but also like see if you can start to stack the evidence for all the times you are sold something that feels really good, or at least neutral, so that you can really create that evidence that the majority of the time it feels all right, and it probably actually feels really good to be on the buying side. Laura says, LOL, I know, good point. I think I just know the feeling. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like I feel like I know this feeling. I'm trying to think. I feel like I'll have an example of the bro marketing, but it's just so funny. I just find it very funny how like we just get so like, we'll not do that. And then it's like, well, wait, what are we not doing? So I think it's even helpful for everyone, if you're hearing Laura and I chat about this, to just see if you can identify that, because then you actually know what are these things that feel yucky or icky or bro marketing or manipulative or whatever the thing we don't like. And then that's great, because then you just know, oh, well, those are just the few things I won't do and I would probably never do, because as a human who's heart-centered and caring and based in integrity and ethics, like these are just probably things I'm never ever gonna ever do. And more often than not, those are probably not the things we're experiencing. Okay, just seeing if there's other, okay, I think those are all the comments. I'm gonna give you all a quick recap here, and then I will directly sell and remind you of the workshop we have coming up on the 15th. But as a recap here, December gets to be how you want it to be. If you want this to be a month where you chill out. If you want this to be a month where you make your biggest income month ever, let it be your biggest income month ever. You get to intentionally decide and show up for that. Just do yourself a favor and don't decide it's going to be your biggest income month and then don't show up and be confused. Just like don't decide it's going to be the month where you chill and expect it to also be your biggest income month. Like pick something and then show up for that in a way where you're backing your own intention and decision instead of painting yourself into a corner where you can't possibly win. And then we talked about how absolutely you can make money and it is normal to sell in the month of December. And 3 super basic, super basic, like everyone can do this and it doesn't need to be more complicated than this, ways to bring in leads this week, next week, the week after, every week in your business. So 1 super simple is playing with looking at the low-hanging fruit, so to say, in your business, and really specifically looking at who are those people that you already built relationships with that maybe were a potential lead client 6 months ago that you can follow back up with, that you can have that touch point with, that you can personally invite into your world. 2, getting really clear on what is that micro offer, that clear next step in the customer journey. Where are you meeting people on the customer journey and how can you sell your face off around that next step? And then 3, really looking at where is your opportunity to win the Mega Margarita competition and to lean into those daily direct sales actions. If you do those things, it would be really challenging not to bring in leads this week, next week, the week after. So really play with those. I would invite you to play with those. And then if you're hearing this and you're like, this is great, and I know I'm going to have a flood of leads coming through the door, and I am someone who holds sales conversations or likes to pitch on live streams or pitch on my podcast or pitch on my webinars, and I would love to have some support getting clear on that framework to walk someone through a sales conversation that really does create a safe container that helps set up safety for the person on the buying side, that really helps empower them, put them in their decision-making power shoes, however we want to phrase that, that also really strategically is set up in a way that facilitates leading a sales conversation. So I'm not just like going into the passive sales action, like taking my hands off the steering wheel here and hoping someone will figure things out. I would love to have you join me for our, I'm calling it a private workshop, but our private workshop, Sell Without the Sleaze, where we're going to walk through a proven 6 and 7 sales call framework. This is literally the sales call framework I've been using in my business for 6.5 years. I did not sell and take those direct sales actions my first year in business, but I booked that first sales call I ever had in my business, and I have a very high closing rate in terms of sales calls. I've never used a script. This is exactly what I've always used. And we're also going to walk through my philosophy around this. And this is the same thing I teach my clients and support my clients around so that they can have and lead really powerful sales conversations in a really transformative and transparent way that keeps them in that role of leader, but also really brings in those clients who are telling them, you're the person I want to work with. You're the person I want to pay. So if you want to join me for that, it's kimmarcussinger.com/sell-without-sleaze. I think I put the link in the comments already. I would love to have you. It's only $39. I mean, it's basically free. I just want you to have a little skin in the game so that you are more likely to show up live, because we're going to workshop this together and we might have some time for role playing for those of you who do. Any of my clients, you get this for free. Just reach out in Basecamp if you want access or if you want to join us. And then the price for this will go up to $49 on the 24th. So now is a great time to join us for that. Right, just seeing if we have any other clients here. Laura says, LOL. Oh, good point. I just know the feeling that's the comment from before. All right, y'all, I love you so much. Thank you for hanging with me. I know this was a long one. I hope it was valuable for you. And then I will be back next week and we will dive into some more funness, and hopefully I will have all the tech working on my side and know that I'm actually live. Thank you for being here, and chat later. Bye.